First contact. The vast emptiness of space had always fascinated Admiral Zarthok. As he stood on the bridge of the Zarthian Empire's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, he marveled at the holographic display of a small blue planet spinning lazily before him. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, was to be the next jewel in the Empire's crown. "Admiral, we've completed our initial scans of the planet," reported his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vexera. Her tentacles twitched with excitement as she continued. "The atmosphere is breathable, and the planet is rich in resources. However, it appears to be inhabited by a primitive species." Zarthok's compound eyes narrowed as he processed this information. "Primitive, you say? Elaborate." Vexera manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on various regions of the planet. "They call themselves humans. Their technology is rudimentary compared to ours. They've barely left their own atmosphere, and their weapons are primarily projectile-based. Our initial assessment suggests they would pose no significant threat to our forces." A low, rumbling laugh escaped Zarthok's mouthparts. "Excellent. This should be an easy conquest. Prepare a detailed report for the High Council. I want to begin the invasion within one of their solar cycles." As Vexera saluted and left to carry out her orders, Zarthok couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. The Zarthian Empire had conquered countless worlds, but each new addition to their territory filled him with pride. These humans would soon learn their place in the galaxy. At the bottom, serving their Zarthian masters. Little did Admiral Zarthok know, his gravest mistake was about to unfold. Dr. Elena Rodriguez squinted at her computer screen, double-checking the data streaming in from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. For weeks, she and her team at NASA had been tracking an anomaly at the edge of the solar system. At first, they thought it might be a new comet or asteroid, but the object's behavior defied all known celestial mechanics. "Hey, Mike," Elena called out to her colleague. "Can you come take a look at this?" Dr. Michael Chen, a brilliant astrophysicist with a penchant for terrible jokes, rolled his chair over to Elena's workstation. "What's up, boss? Did you finally discover that alien megastructure you've been dreaming about?" Elena rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. "Not quite. But this is strange. The object we've been tracking, it's changed course, again. And this time, it's heading straight for Earth." Mike's jovial expression faded as he leaned in to examine the data. That's impossible. No natural object could make those kinds of maneuvers." "Exactly," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mike, I think we need to alert the higher-ups. This could be first contact." As Elena and Mike scrambled to compile their findings and notify their superiors, similar scenes were playing out in observatories and space agencies around the world. Within hours, governments across the globe were holding emergency meetings, and the UN Security Council was convened. The world held its breath, waiting for confirmation of what many had long suspected. We were not alone in the universe. In the Oval Office, President Samuel Hawkins listened intently as his advisors briefed him on the situation. The room was tense, filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Mr. President," began Dr. Rodriguez, who had been flown in to provide her expertise, "based on our calculations, the object, or rather, objects, as we've now identified multiple vessels, will reach Earth orbit within 48 hours. The President nodded, his face grave. "And we're certain these are extraterrestrial craft." "Yes, sir," confirmed General Sarah Blackwood, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "We've ruled out all other possibilities. These are artificial constructs, and they're not ours." President Hawkins took a deep breath, processing the weight of the moment. "What are our options?" "Sir," General Blackwood replied, "I recommend we put our armed forces on high alert. We don't know their intentions, and we need to be prepared for any scenario." "Agreed," the President said. "But let's not jump to conclusions. Dr. Rodriguez, what's your take on this?" Elena hesitated for a moment before speaking. Mr. President, this is an unprecedented opportunity for humanity. We should attempt to communicate with them, to establish peaceful contact if possible. But, she paused, choosing her words carefully, we should also be prepared for the worst. President Hawkins nodded, a hint of a smile on his face. Well said, Doctor. Let's hope for the best but prepare for the worst. General Blackwood, put our forces on high alert, but keep them out of sight. We don't want to appear hostile. Dr. Rodriguez, I want you to lead a team to attempt communication with our visitors. Let's show them the best of humanity. As the meeting adjourned and the officials filed out of the Oval Office, President Hawkins turned to look out the window. The weight of history pressed down on his shoulders. He knew that whatever happened next would change the course of human civilization forever. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Zarthok reviewed the final invasion plans with his war council. The holographic display showed a detailed map of Earth, with key strategic targets highlighted. Our first wave will target their military installations and seats of government, Zarthok explained, his tentacles gesturing at various points on the map. We'll use our superior technology to neutralize their defenses quickly and efficiently. Sub-Commander Vexera interjected. Admiral, we've detected numerous attempts at communication from the humans. Should we respond? Zarthok waved a dismissive tentacle. Ignore them. Their primitive attempts at diplomacy are irrelevant. We are here to conquer, not to negotiate. As the War Council continued to refine their plans, a junior officer burst into the room, his exoskeleton flushed with agitation. Admiral, we've detected a small craft launching from the planet's surface. It appears to be on an intercept course with our fleet. Zarthok's compound eyes widened in surprise. Impossible. How could they have the technology to reach us? The holographic display shifted, showing a small, sleek spacecraft rapidly approaching the Zarthian fleet. It was a design unlike anything they had seen before, more advanced than they had believed the humans capable of producing. Shall we destroy it, Admiral? Asked the weapons officer, his appendages hovering over the control panel. Zarthok hesitated, his curiosity piqued. No. Let's see what they're up to. Prepare a tractor beam. We'll bring them aboard and interrogate them. Perhaps these humans are more interesting than we initially thought. As the Zarthian tractor beam locked onto the human vessel, pulling it towards the Eternal Dominion, neither the aliens nor the humans realized that this moment would set in motion a chain of events that would shake the foundations of the galaxy. The human craft, piloted by a small, elite team led by Dr. Elena Rodriguez, was about to make history. They carried with them humanity's hopes, fears, and a few surprises that would soon make the Zarthians regret their assumption of an easy conquest. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of Earth and challenge the Zarthian Empire's dominance in ways they could never have imagined. Part 2. The invasion begins. The sleek human spacecraft, christened the Emissary, was pulled into the cavernous docking bay of the Eternal Dominion. As the tractor beam released its grip, the ship settled gently onto the alien deck with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. Inside the Emissary, Dr. Elena Rodriguez took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. Beside her, Captain Jack Harper, a decorated Air Force pilot with nerves of steel, double-checked his sidearm. The rest of their small team, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a brilliant xenolinguist, and Major Carlos Ortiz, their security expert, tensed in anticipation. Remember, Elena said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins, we're here to establish peaceful contact. But if things go south, we've got your back, Doc, Captain Harper finished with a grim nod. As the airlock cycled open, they were met with the imposing sight of Admiral Zarthok, flanked by a contingent of heavily armed Zarthian soldiers. The aliens towered over the humans, their insectoid features both fascinating and terrifying. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. She began to speak, her voice clear and confident as she cycled through a series of mathematical sequences and prime numbers, a language they hoped would transcend species barriers. Admiral Zarthok's compound eyes narrowed as he listened. With a gesture, he activated a small device on his exoskeleton. When he spoke, his alien clicks and chirps were instantly translated into English. Impressive, the Admiral's synthesized voice intoned. You've managed to reach us, despite your primitive technology. State your purpose here. Elena stepped forward, her heart pounding, but her resolve unshaken. We come in peace, seeking dialogue and mutual understanding between our species. Zarthok's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or disdain. Peace. Understanding. You misunderstand the situation, human. We are not here for dialogue. We are here to claim what is rightfully ours, your planet, and all its resources. The human team exchanged alarmed glances. This was the scenario they had feared but hoped to avoid. Surely we can come to some sort of agreement. Elena pressed, desperate to find a peaceful solution. Our species could benefit from cultural and technological exchange. Enough. Zarthok interrupted, his patience wearing thin. Your pitiful attempts at diplomacy are wasted here. You will be detained and questioned. Your knowledge may prove useful in our conquest of your world. As Zarthian soldiers moved to surround the human team, Captain Harper's hand inched towards his weapon. But before he could act, Dr. Tanaka subtly shook her head. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Their best chance now was to gather intelligence and find a way to warn Earth. As they were led away to the ship's detention center, Elena couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. They had failed in their mission for peace, and now Earth was in grave danger. Back on Earth, the situation was rapidly deteriorating. The Zarthian fleet had begun its assault, targeting key military installations and government centers with pinpoint accuracy. The skies over major cities were filled with alien ships, their advanced weapons easily overwhelming Earth's defenses. In Washington, D.C., President Hawkins stood in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by his top military advisors. The room was a flurry of activity, with screens displaying real-time updates of the invasion's progress. Mr. President, General Blackwood reported, her voice tense, we've lost contact with our team on the alien mothership. We have to assume they've been captured or worse. President Hawkins' jaw clenched, and our military response. We're putting up a fight, sir, but their technology is far beyond ours. Our conventional weapons are barely making a dent in their defenses. As if to emphasize the point, the building shook with a distant explosion. An aide rushed in, his face pale. Sir, we've lost the Pentagon. It's gone. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of the news settling heavily on everyone's shoulders. President Hawkins straightened, his eyes blazing with determination. We may be outgunned, but we're not beaten. Not yet. General, initiate Operation Phoenix. It's time we showed these aliens what humanity is really capable of. General Blackwood nodded grimly. Yes, sir. God help us all. As the orders went out, a new phase of the war began. Around the world, hidden bunkers sprang to life, housing secrets that even most world leaders didn't know existed. Projects that had been deemed too dangerous or ethically questionable in peacetime were now humanity's last hope. In a deep underground facility beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Marcus Wong, a renegade physicist whose theories had once been ridiculed by the scientific community, now found himself at the center of humanity's resistance. His life's work, a revolutionary energy weapon that could potentially pierce the Zarthians' advanced shields, was about to be put to the test. Dr. Wong, a military liaison, urged, "We'd need that weapon operational yesterday. The aliens are advancing faster than we anticipated." Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers flying over holographic controls. "I'm working as fast as I can, but you have to understand, we're dealing with forces we barely comprehend. One miscalculation could vaporize half the state." As Marcus and his team raced against time, Similar scenes played out in secret facilities around the globe. In the depths of the Amazon rainforest, a team of bioengineers worked feverishly to weaponize a newly discovered fungus that showed promise in breaking down alien tech. Beneath the ice of Antarctica, long-dormant geothermal generators roared to life, powering experimental electromagnetic pulse devices that could potentially disable the invader ships. Humanity, backed into a corner, was unleashing every scrap of ingenuity and every secret weapon at its disposal. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Alina and her team were led to a stark, featureless cell. As soon as the force field shimmer hid into place behind them, they huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. "This is bad," Captain Harper muttered, stating the obvious. "We need to find a way out of here and warn Earth about what's coming." Dr. Tanaka nodded, her analytical mind already working on the problem. "I've been studying their language and technology since we arrived. There might be a way to override the cell's controls, but it's risky." Major Ortiz grinned, a fierce light in his eyes. "Risky is better than sitting here waiting for the end. What's the plan, Doc?" As they began to formulate their escape strategy, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The Zarthians' technology was advanced, yes, but there was something off about it, something that nagged at the edges of her scientific intuition. Before she could pursue that thought further, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The cell's force field flickered momentarily, and in that instant, Major Ortiz made his move. With lightning-fast reflexes, he hurled a small device, cleverly concealed from their captors, through the flickering field. It detonated with a burst of electromagnetic energy, shorting out the cell's systems entirely. "Now or never, people," Harper shouted, leading the charge out of the cell. As they raced through the alien corridors, dodging panicked Zarthian crew members, Alina's mind raced. What had caused the alarms? Had Earth managed to mount an effective counterattack? They rounded a corner and came face to face with Sub-Commander Vexera, her tentacles writhing in surprise and anger. Before she could raise the alarm, Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, speaking rapidly in the Zarthian language she had been deciphering. To everyone's shock, Vexera hesitated, her compound eyes flickering with what might have been uncertainty. You speak our tongue," she chittered, the translator struggling to keep up with her agitation. "We seek understanding. We seek understanding," Dr. Tanaka replied, her voice steady despite the tension of the moment. "This conflict is unnecessary. Surely there's a way we can coexist peacefully." Vexera's tentacles twitched uncertainly. For a moment, it seemed as if she might actually consider Tanaka's words. But then her training reasserted itself, and her posture stiffened. "Impossible. The Empire's will is absolute. You will return to your cell immediately, or—" She never finished her sentence. With a swift move, Captain Harper activated another of their hidden devices, a sonic disruptor tuned to Zarthian physiology. Vexera collapsed, her sensory organs overwhelmed by the focused sound waves. "Nice work, everyone," Alina said as they continued their escape. "But we're not out of this yet. We need to find a way to communicate with Earth and warn them about the invasion." As they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the Eternal Dominion, the human team witnessed scenes of chaos. Alarms blared, and Zarthian crew members rushed about in apparent disarray. Something had clearly gone wrong with their invasion plans. They finally reached a communication hub, its banks of alien technology humming with activity. Dr. Tanaka and Major Ortiz got to work immediately, their fingers flying over the unfamiliar controls as they attempted to establish a secure link to Earth. "I'm in," Tanaka exclaimed after several tense minutes. "But this can't be right." The screens before them lit up with images of Earth, but not the scenes of devastation they had expected. Instead, they saw Zarthian ships falling from the sky, disabled by some unseen force. In major cities around the globe, strange energy fields shimmered into existence, repelling alien attacks. "It looks like Earth had some surprises up its sleeve," Captain Harper said, a note of pride in his voice. Elena leaned in, studying the images intently. This technology. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. How did we develop this without anyone knowing? Before anyone could respond, the door to the communication hub slid open. Admiral Zarathok stood there, flanked by a squad of heavily armed soldiers. His compound eyes blazed with fury. "You dare," he hissed, the translator struggling to convey the depth of his rage. "You primitive creatures think you can defy the might of the Zarthian Empire." Elena stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. "It looks like you underestimated us, Admiral. Humanity is not as primitive as you thought." Zarthok's mandibles clicked in anger. "It matters not. Your planet may have some unexpected defenses, but it is only a matter of time before we overwhelm them. And you will not live to see your worlds fall." As the Zarthian soldiers raised their weapons, time seemed to slow. Elena's mind raced, searching for a solution, a way out of this seemingly hopeless situation. And then, in a moment of brilliant clarity, she remembered the nagging feeling she'd had earlier, the odd familiarity of some of the Zarthian technology. "Wait," she shouted, her voice ringing out with unexpected authority. "Admiral, there's something you need to know about your technology, about your very species." Zarthok hesitated, curiosity momentarily overriding his anger. "Speak quickly, human. These will be your last words." Elena took a deep breath, hoping her hypothesis was correct. "Your technology, advanced as it is, bears striking similarities to ancient artifacts we've discovered on Earth, artifacts that predate human civilization. I don't think you evolved naturally on your homeworld. I think you were seeded there, just as humans were seeded on Earth." A ripple of shock passed through the Zarthian soldiers. Even Admiral Zarathok seemed taken aback. "Impossible," he growled, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. "Think about it," Elena pressed, sensing a chance to turn the tide. "The similarities in our base genetic structures, the odd familiarity of your tech, we're not so different, you and us. We could be distant cousins, shaped by the same ancient progenitors." For a long moment, silence reigned in the communication hub. The Zarthians looked to their admiral, waiting for his response. Zarthok's compound eyes flickered rapidly, processing this new information. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of decision. "Lower your weapons," he ordered his soldiers. Then, turning to Elena and her team, he said, "You will explain this theory in detail. If what you say is true, it could change everything." As the tension in the room eased slightly, Elena allowed herself a small smile. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was a start, a chance for dialogue, for understanding, and perhaps, just perhaps, a way to end this war before it truly began. Back on Earth, as the battle raged on, and humanity unleashed its hidden technological marvels, no one yet realized that the true key to peace lay not in advanced weapons or shields, but in a shared history that stretched back to the stars themselves. The invasion had begun, but its conclusion was far from certain. In the hours and days to come, both humans and Zarthians would be forced to confront truths about themselves and each other that would shake the foundations of their societies. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would emerge from this crucible of conflict and revelation. As Elena prepared to present her evidence to Admiral Zarathok, she knew that the fate of two species now rested on her shoulders. It was time to rewrite history, and hopefully, forge a new future among the stars. Part 3. Humanity Fights Back. While Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team worked to unravel the mystery of human and Zarthian origins aboard the Eternal Dominion, the battle for Earth continued to rage. Across the globe, humanity's hidden arsenal of advanced technology was unleashed, catching the Zarthian invasion force off guard. In the skies over New York City, swarms of miniaturized drones, developed in secret by DARPA, swarmed Zarthian fighters. The tiny machines, each no larger than a hummingbird, used advanced AI to coordinate their attacks, overwhelming the alien sensors and disabling their ships with precisely targeted EMP bursts. Captain Sarah Chen, piloting one of Earth's few advanced interceptors, watched in awe as another Zarthian cruiser plummeted from the sky, brought down by the relentless drone swarm. "Command, this is Phantom Leader," she reported, her voice tight with exhilaration. "The hide strategy is working. Enemy air superiority is degrading rapidly." "Copy that, Phantom Leader," came the response from the underground command center beneath the ruins of the Pentagon. "Keep the pressure on. We need to buy time for our ground forces to deploy the Nexus defense grid." As Captain Chen banked her fighter for another attack run, she allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. The aliens had thought humanity would be an easy conquest, but they were learning the hard way just how tenacious and innovative humans could be when pushed to the brink. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, Dr. Isabella Vega and her team of bioengineers worked feverishly in a hidden laboratory. They had made a breakthrough in weaponizing the XR27 fungus, a genetically modified organism designed to rapidly break down Zarthian technology. "We've stabilized the spore delivery system," Dr. Vega announced, her eyes bright with a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "It should be able to survive atmospheric dispersal now." Her colleague, Dr. Rahul Patel, looked up from his microscope with a worried frown. "Isabella, are we sure about this? Once we release XR27, there's no controlling it. The environmental impact could be catastrophic." Isabella's expression hardened. "I know the risks, Rahul. But right now, the alternative is the extinction of our species. We have to trust that we can deal with the consequences after we've won this war." As if to emphasize her point, a distant explosion rocked the laboratory. The Zarthians were getting closer to discovering their hidden facility. "We're out of time," Isabella declared. "Prepare the delivery drones. It's now or never." As the team scrambled to load the fungal spores into the waiting drones, Isabella said a silent prayer. She hoped that the safeguards they had built into XR27 would be enough to prevent it from becoming an ecological disaster. But even if they weren't, she knew they had no choice. Humanity's survival hung in the balance. In Washington, D.C., or what was left of it, President Samuel Hawkins stood in the ruins of the Lincoln Memorial. Around him, soldiers and civilians alike worked tirelessly to set up one of the nodes of the Nexus defense grid, a global network of energy projectors designed to create a planetary shield. "Mr. President," General Blackwood approached, her uniform covered in dust and blood. "We're receiving reports from around the world. The counterattack is working. We've managed to stall their advance. But it's not enough," Hawkins finished for her, his eyes fixed on the alien ships still visible in the sky. "What's the status of the Nexus grid?" "We're at 60% coverage, sir. Another hour, maybe two, and we'll be able to activate the full planetary shield." "But," the president turned to face her, noting the hesitation in her voice. "Speak freely, General." Blackwood's face was grim. "Sir, even with the shield, we're just buying time. Our resources are stretched to the breaking point. If Dr. Rodriguez and her team can't find a diplomatic solution." Hawkins nodded, understanding the unspoken conclusion. They were putting up a good fight, but in a prolonged war of attrition against a technologically superior foe, humanity's chances were slim. "We've surprised them once, Sarah," the president said, using the general's first name, a rarity that underscored the gravity of the moment. "We might have a few more surprises up our sleeve. We just need to hold out long enough for Elena and her team to work their magic." As if in response to his words, the sky lit up with another barrage of alien weapons fire. The makeshift defense batteries around the National Mall roared to life, filling the air with a web of interceptor missiles and energy beams. President Hawkins watched the battle unfold, his jaw set in determination. "Whatever happens, General, let history show that humanity did not go quietly into the night. We fought with every ounce of strength, every spark of ingenuity we possessed." General Blackwood straightened, saluting sharply. "Yes, sir." To the last man and woman, if necessary. As they turned back to the task of coordinating Earth's defense, neither of them could have imagined the revelations unfolding aboard the Eternal Dominion. Revelations that would soon reshape the very nature of the conflict. Back on the Zarthian flagship, Alina Rodriguez had just finished presenting her evidence to Admiral Zarthok and a hastily assembled council of Zarthian scientists. The tension in the room was palpable as the alien struggled to process the implications of her theory. "This is unprecedented," chittered one of the Zarthian scientists, his translator struggling to convey the mix of excitement and disbelief in his voice. "If what you say is true, it would mean our entire understanding of our species' history is wrong." Admiral Zarthok's compound eyes flickered rapidly, a sign of deep thought in his species. "The similarities in our base genetic structures, the anomalies in our archaeological records that we've always dismissed, it all starts to make a twisted kind of sense." Alina pressed her advantage. "Admiral, don't you see? This war is pointless. We're not enemies. We're long-lost relatives. Imagine what our species could accomplish if we worked together instead of fighting each other." For a long moment, Zarthok was silent. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with the weight of decision. "You've given us much to consider, Dr. Rodriguez. I need time to consult with the High Council. This changes everything." As the Zarthians filed out of the room, leaving Alina and her team under guard, but no longer treated as hostile prisoners, Captain Harper leaned in close. "Do you think they bought it?" he whispered. Alina's eyes were fixed on the retreating form of Admiral Zarthok. "I think we've given them something they can't ignore. Whether it's enough to stop this war, that remains to be seen." Dr. Tanaka, who had been quietly observing the Zarthians' reactions, added her thoughts. "There's something else at play here. Did you notice how some of them seemed almost relieved, as if this theory confirmed suspicions they'd long held but never dared voice?" Before they could discuss further, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A Zarthian officer rushed into the room, his exoskeleton flushed with agitation. "Admiral, we're detecting a massive energy buildup on the planet's surface. Some kind of shield is forming." Alina's heart leaped. The Nexus grid must be coming online. Earth had managed to buy itself some time. As chaos erupted around them, with Zarthian crew members rushing to battle stations, Alina exchanged glances with her team. They had planted the seeds of doubt in the Zarthians' minds, but would it be enough? The next few hours would determine not just the fate of Earth, but potentially the future of two species that were only now realizing how intertwined their histories might be. The battle for Earth, and for the truth, was far from over. But for the first time since the invasion began, there was a glimmer of hope on the horizon. A hope born not from the barrels of guns or the missiles of warships, but from the shared quest for knowledge and understanding that lay at the heart of both human and Zarthian cultures. As the Eternal Dominion shuddered under the strain of renewed combat operations, Alina closed her eyes and sent a silent plea to the stars. "Give us time," she whispered. "Just a little more time to find the truth that can save us all." The turning point. The activation of Earth's Nexus defense grid marked a crucial turning point in the war. As the shimmering energy field enveloped the planet, the Zarthian fleet found itself suddenly cut off from its ground forces. Thousands of alien ships, caught between the planet's new shield and the surprising ferocity of Earth's counterattack, were thrown into disarray. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Zarthok watched with a mixture of fury and grudging respect as his carefully laid invasion plans crumbled. "Impossible," he muttered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "How could they have developed such technology without our knowledge?" Sub-Commander Vexera, who had been monitoring the planet's communications, turned to her superior. "Admiral, we're intercepting transmissions from the human leadership. They're offering a ceasefire. They want to talk." Zarthok's compound eyes narrowed. "A ploy, no doubt. They seek to buy time while their defenses strengthen." Perhaps, Vexera ventured cautiously, but in light of Dr. Rodriguez's revelations, might it not be worth considering? The Admiral's gaze swept over the command center, taking in the chaos of battle reports and damage assessments. His entire military career, his understanding of the galaxy and his species' place in it, had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. For the first time in his long life, Zarthok felt the uncomfortable sting of uncertainty. "Patch me through to their leaders," he finally ordered. "I will hear what they have to say." In the underground bunker that had become Earth's de facto capital, President Hawkins stood before a hastily assembled array of communication equipment. Surrounded by his advisors and military leaders, he prepared to address not just his fellow humans, but an alien species that had, until recently, been bent on their destruction. "Mr. President," General Blackwood said softly, "are you sure about this? We've got them on the back foot. Push a little harder, and we might be able to drive them out of our solar system entirely." Hawkins shook his head, his expression grave. "And then what, Sarah? We've seen what their technology is capable of. Even if we win this battle, we'd be looking over our shoulders forever, waiting for them to return in greater numbers." He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "No, our best chance, maybe our only chance, is to find a way to end this conflict for good." As the signal was established and the face of Admiral Zarthok appeared on the main screen, President Hawkins steeled himself for what? As the signal was established and the face of Admiral Zarthok appeared on the main screen, President Hawkins steeled himself for what might be the most important conversation in human history. "Admiral Zarthok," Hawkins began, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. "I am Samuel Hawkins, President of the United States and current spokesperson for Earth's unified defense. I come to you with an offer of ceasefire and a proposal for peaceful dialogue." The alien commander's compound eyes flickered, his mandibles clicking softly as the translation came through. "You have our attention, President Hawkins. Your species has proven surprisingly resilient. Speak your piece." Hawkins nodded, choosing his words carefully. "Admiral, I believe we've both learned some surprising things about each other in these past few days. Our defenses have proven stronger than you anticipated, and we've discovered potential links between our species that neither of us fully understands yet. I propose we set aside our hostilities and focus on unraveling these mysteries together." There was a long pause as Zarthok seemed to consider the offer. When he spoke again, there was a note of curiosity in his synthesized voice. "You speak of mysteries, human. What do you know?" "Our scientists, working with Dr. Elena Rodriguez aboard your flagship, have uncovered evidence suggesting that both our species may have been engineered by a common ancestor, a precursor race that seeded multiple worlds across the galaxy." A ripple of surprise passed through the Zarthian command staff visible in the background of the transmission. Zarthok's posture stiffened, but his voice remained level. "These are bold claims, President Hawkins. What proof do you offer?" "Admiral, I propose an exchange. We'll share all our findings with your scientists, and in return, we ask for access to your historical and genetic databases. Together, we might be able to piece together the true history of both our species." The tension in both command centers was palpable as everyone waited for Zarthok's response. After what seemed like an eternity, the alien commander spoke. "Your offer is intriguing, President Hawkins. I will consult with the High Council, but I am inclined to accept this ceasefire." However, his tone sharpened. "Be warned, if this is some form of deception, the consequences will be severe." Hawkins nodded solemnly. "Understood, Admiral. We look forward to your response. In the meantime, I suggest we both recall our forces to defensive positions. Let's not risk any further bloodshed while diplomacy has a chance to work." As the transmission ended, a collective breath was released in the human command center. General Blackwood turned to the president, her expression a mix of hope and skepticism. "Do you think it worked, sir?" Hawkins ran a hand through his graying hair, the weight of the past few days evident in his tired eyes. I think we've bought ourselves some time, Sarah. Now it's up to Dr. Rodriguez and her team to find the evidence we need to turn the ceasefire into lasting peace. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Elena and her team had been monitoring the exchange between Zarthok and President Hawkins. As the transmission ended, they found themselves the center of attention as curious Zarthian scientists approached them. "Is it true?" one of the aliens asked, his translator struggling to convey the mix of excitement and trepidation in his voice. "Do you really have evidence of our shared origins?" Elena nodded, her expression serious, but her eyes alight with the thrill of scientific discovery. "We have compelling data that suggests it, yes. But to confirm it, we'll need to work together, comparing our findings with your own historical and genetic records." As the human and Zarthian scientists began to cautiously exchange information, Captain Harper pulled Elena aside. "Doc, are you sure about this? We're giving them access to a lot of sensitive information." Elena's gaze was firm as she replied, "Jack, this is bigger than just our conflict. If we're right about this, it could change the course of galactic history. Besides," she added with a hint of a smile, "they'll be sharing just as much with us. Think of what we could learn." As the impromptu collaboration began, with data flowing back and forth between human and alien devices, a palpable sense of excitement began to build. Centuries-old mysteries in Zarthian archaeology suddenly found potential explanations in human genetic research, while anomalies in Earth's fossil record were given new context by Zarthian historical data. Hours passed in a flurry of activity, with both species so engrossed in their shared discoveries that they almost forgot they had been mortal enemies just days before. It was Dr. Tanaka who made the breakthrough, her eyes wide as she called everyone's attention to her holographic display. "Look at this," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "When we overlay the genetic markers we've identified as potentially artificial with the star maps from the Zarthian archives, we get this." The hologram shifted, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Dozens of stars lit up, forming a clear pattern that couldn't be natural. "It's a roadmap," Elena breathed, her mind racing with the implications. "Whoever created both our species, they left us a trail to follow. But to where?" Admiral Zarthok, who had been silently observing the proceedings, stepped forward. His usual air of superiority was gone, replaced by a sense of wonder that transcended species barriers. "To our true origins," he said softly, "to the home of our creators." As the reality of their discovery sank in, human and Zarthian alike found themselves united in a moment of shared awe. The war that had brought them to this point suddenly seemed small, insignificant in the face of the cosmic mystery that now lay before them. Elena turned to Zarthok, her expression determined. "Admiral, I think it's time we took this to both our leaders. What we've uncovered here, it changes everything." Zarthok's compound eyes flickered in what Elena was beginning to recognize as agreement. "Indeed, Dr. Rodriguez, it seems our species have a common destiny after all, one that lies out there among the stars." As preparations began for a joint presentation to Earth's leaders and the Zarthian High Council, Elena couldn't help but feel a sense of profound optimism. They had come to the brink of mutual destruction, only to discover a shared heritage that spanned the cosmos. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew that facing them together, humans and Zarthians would be capable of incredible things. The turning point had come not through force of arms, but through the power of scientific curiosity and the willingness to look beyond surface differences. As the Eternal Dominion's engines hummed to life, preparing to take them back to Earth for the historic joint announcement, Elena realized that this was just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. The war was over. The age of exploration, true cosmic exploration, was about to begin. Victory and aftermath. The joint announcement from President Hawkins and Admiral Zarthok, broadcast simultaneously to Earth and the Zarthian homeworld, sent shockwaves through both civilizations. The revelation of their shared origins and the existence of a precursor race that had seeded both species across the galaxy was met with a mix of awe, disbelief, and in some quarters, fear. In the days that followed, as the Zarthian fleet withdrew from Earth orbit and emergency relief efforts began on both sides, the full implications of the discovery began to sink in. Humanity and the Zarthians were no longer enemies, but reluctant allies bound by a common heritage and an interstellar mystery that begged to be solved. On Earth, the process of rebuilding began in earnest. The advanced technology that had been developed in secret to combat the Zarthian invasion was now repurposed to aid in the reconstruction efforts. Cities that had been reduced to rubble were rebuilt at an astonishing pace, incorporating both human and Zarthian engineering principles. Dr. Marcus Wong, whose revolutionary energy weapon had played a crucial role in Earth's defense, found himself leading a joint human-Zarthian research team. Their goal: to develop a new form of faster-than-light travel that would allow both species to follow the cosmic roadmap left by their creators. It's ironic. Marcus mused to his Zarthian colleague, a brilliant physicist named Zexley. "We developed this technology to destroy each other, and now we're using it to explore the stars together." Zexley's mandibles clicked in what Marcus had learned was a sign of amusement. Perhaps that was the intent all along, Dr. Wong. Our creators may have known that only through conflict would we advance quickly enough to follow their trail. As they worked, news came in from around the world of other collaborative efforts. In the Amazon, Dr. Isabella Vega and her team worked alongside Zarthian biologists to safely neutralize the XR27 fungus and study its potential applications in medicine and environmental restoration. The drone swarms that had once brought down Zarthian fighters were being adapted for deep space exploration, their AI reprogrammed to seek out signs of precursor technology on distant worlds. Even the Nexus Defense Grid, Earth's last-ditch planetary shield, was being expanded and improved with Zarthian input. The goal was to create a network of similar shields around vulnerable colonies of both species, ensuring that neither would ever again be caught unprepared by an external threat. 6 months after the ceasefire, a historic ceremony was held in the newly rebuilt United Nations headquarters in New York. President Hawkins and Admiral Zarthok, now serving as the official ambassador of the Zarthian Empire, stood side by side to sign the Terran-Zarthian Cooperative Accord. Today, Hawkins began, his voice carrying to the billions watching the broadcast across 2 worlds. "We take the first step on a journey that will reshape the destiny of both our species. The road ahead will not be easy. There are still those on both sides who view our newfound alliance with suspicion and fear. But the promise of what we might achieve together far outweighs the lingering shadows of our past conflict." Admiral Zarthok stepped forward, his imposing form a stark contrast to the human leader beside him. For millennia, the Zarthian Empire expanded across the stars, certain of our destiny to rule the galaxy. We saw other species as resources to be exploited, as subjects to be conquered. Humanity taught us the folly of such thinking. He paused, his compound eyes sweeping across the assembled dignitaries. In humans, we found not just a worthy adversary, but a mirror of ourselves. Your resilience, your ingenuity, your unwavering spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. These are qualities that we Zarthians have long prided ourselves on. In fighting you, we came to respect you. In allying with you, we hope to learn from you. As the 2 leaders signed the accord, a thunderous applause filled the chamber. It was a moment of triumph, not just for humanity or the Zarthians, but for the very idea of peaceful coexistence between different species. 1 year to the day after the invasion began, the TSV Horizon, the first joint Terran-Zarthian exploratory vessel, prepared for launch from a newly constructed spaceport in the Gobi Desert. Its crew, a carefully selected mix of humans and Zarthians, represented the best of both species. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now serving as the ship's chief science officer, stood on the bridge alongside Captain Jack Harper. Through the view screen, they could see the massive crowd gathered to witness the historic launch. Nervous? Jack asked, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Elena shook her head, her eyes bright with excitement. Excited. We're about to embark on the greatest journey in the history of both our species. Who knows what we'll find out there? As the final launch preparations were completed, President Hawkins' voice came through the ship's communication system. TSV Horizon, you carry with you the hopes and dreams of two civilizations. Your mission is to follow the trail left by our creators, to uncover the truth of our origins, and to forge a path to a shared future among the stars. Godspeed, and safe travels. With a roar of its advanced engines, a fusion of human creativity and Zarthian engineering, the Horizon lifted off. As it rose into the sky, picking up speed with each passing second, the cheers of the crowd below were drowned out by the thunder of humanity's next great leap into the unknown. Aboard the ship, as the blue of Earth's atmosphere gave way to the star-studded blackness of space, Elena felt a profound sense of optimism. They had come so close to destroying each other, only to discover a shared destiny that spanned the cosmos. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever mysteries awaited them in the depths of space, she knew that together, humans and Zarthians were ready to face them. The war was over. The age of exploration had begun. And somewhere out there, among the countless stars, the answers to their shared origins waited to be discovered. As the Horizon engaged its FTL drive, preparing to make its first jump along the cosmic roadmap left by their precursor race, Elena whispered a quiet promise to herself and to the universe at large. We're coming. And this time, we're coming together. With a flash of light that seemed to bend the very fabric of space-time, the TSV Horizon vanished into the depths of the galaxy, carrying with it the hopes, dreams, and shared destiny of two species that had found unity in the aftermath of conflict. The greatest adventure in the history of both civilizations had begun, and the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter in anticipation of what was to come.